think we've got everybody. All right, Heather, are you ready for us to start?
Yep.
All right. Welcome, everybody. This is the November 30th, 2020 Board of Education regular meeting. It is now 6:15 p.m. Heather, please conduct our roll call.
Mr. Adams?
Here.
Mrs. Capo?
Here.
Mrs. Case?
Here.
Mr. Kushner?
Here.
Mrs. Wolf?
Here.
All right, I'd like to move on to the approval of the agenda. You all have an agenda before you. At this time, I'll take any comments or changes or amendments to the current agenda. All right, seeing none, we'll move forward with any public comment. No public comment. Nope. All right, moving on to our first order of business, agenda item 2, discussion items. 2.1, our superintendent's report. Sheldon.
Right now, probably the big thing is we did start remote learning today with all 3 schools, with Boys and Girls Club in the elementary. I'll let them do updates on how that went today. We plan on staying that for the rest of the semester till December 18th. Between now and then, I guess we will have to make a decision of what January 5th looks like, or at least indicate that where we're headed with that. We may not be able to do the total decision. This week, there is 2 different groups meeting with the governor's office. The governor's office put out some new guidelines end of last week with their new dial, which has purple and red, and they changed red and all those sort of things. They're looking at changing how they quarantine some groups. There is a proposal for moving it from 14 days to 7 days. I do not know the science behind that, but that is a proposal. And I guess they'll tell us if that happens. So anyway, Case and Casby are meeting with the governor, as well as he created a group of from the Colorado Education Association and other groups, some superintendents, to also see if we could come up with a way that the guidelines would allow us to go to school in January. Of course, this is all still based on what community spread is between now and then, and hospitalizations and everything else. Before, when we were in red, we were supposed to be remote learning automatically. 2 weeks ago, or right the week before Thanksgiving, they switched that red could be in-person learning, and they recommend it for the elementary. And so that was a little controversial, as I sent to you. That's what they're trying to work out right now. But they did send some new guidelines out, like I say, this week. I get an update on it Wednesday. I've read them. They're not a lot different, but they are a little more clear. The big thing is quarantines, whether you can target quarantine or you have to do whole cohorts, and depending on what level you are at. And some other issues like that will be big factors in determining what we can do. And then again, of course, what is happening at the state and local level, as well, the county, as well as Estes Park at that time. Right now, we have a lot of cases, 240 some, but they have leveled off a little bit in the last week. We're not getting 20, 30 a day. We're getting a few a day, but we'll see what happens after Thanksgiving, and some of the college kids come home and stuff. So we'll just have to monitor it, and we'll meet with you guys, work with you, give you information, look at all the data and all the new procedures, and come up with a plan. Probably send something out before we get out of school of what our plan is, realizing that anything can happen between December 18th and January 5th that may change that. So, you have any questions on that?
Sheldon, I do have a question.
Mm-hmm.
When do you think you'll be having the discussion on when to go back in January?
We'll have it probably continued through, and then I'll keep you guys updated. We have a meeting next week and the week after, so we have one the 8th and the 14th, so I'll keep you kind of updated. We'll probably try to make it around the 14th, 15th. We'll see where we're at, depending on what information we have at that time. And I suppose, if we stayed remote for sure, then it would be pretty well set. If we said we were going back in person with some schools or all schools, and we would still have to be dependent on what conditions we have at the time, and would change that. But we'll have to get something out. I'm sure our parents and students would want to know what we're thinking, at least before school's out on December 18th. So I've sent something out with that, or what indicators we're looking at if we do not make the decision at that time, what we're waiting for. But hopefully we'll get some clarity on isolation and quarantining and the new levels this week, and start talking about it next week. And then hopefully the next week we'll be able to make some decisions and see the trends and the beliefs. So we'll see from there. Right now we do have small groups coming in. We still feel, I feel at least, that our schools are safe, that transmission is not happening within our school walls, but with so much community spread and so many symptoms out there. I mean, we's up to 30% absentee rates without even COVID in our schools. So there's a lot of factors.
Sure, and as you and I had talked to, Sheldon, that another issue can be staff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Staff is usually really the issue. Like I say, I feel like we're safe once we're here, but when you start having staffing issues, then it also causes you to not be able to follow the protocols as well if you have to combine kids or go out to recess together and that kind of stuff. So then you are starting to get some risky behaviors that we don't want, or do lunch differently or something like that. So staff is an issue, and again, if staff is being careful, and hopefully that they are also not getting it at school, they're getting it outside. Maybe if that's why it's so crucial on the quarantining and that kind of stuff of what the rules are. If they quarantine everybody in the cohort, then we can't probably stay in school, because we really can't run our schools without them seeing 4 or 5 teachers. If they're targeting and we can keep that teacher 6 feet away with a mask on, then we don't have to send that teacher home for 14 days. And so
Right.
that even though they're not sick or necessarily been exposed, we would still not have them in school. So that's probably the biggest factor, is symptoms. If you have a cold, how long do you stay out? Testing, and then of course how they track the quarantine and isolation piece, and for how long. And like I say, that is a bigger factor for our staff than it is for our students.
Yeah, I think it's just important to make a point that it's multifaceted versus.
Yeah, definitely is.
Thank you.
So they are having a special session as well this week with the governor. Not a lot of school things on the special session. They're going to try to allot some more money to some rural broadband. So we may look at that. I think they're moving $2 million to $20 million, which really doesn't get you far with all the broadband issues in the state. But if we can apply for some of that for some of our rural areas, we will, if that passes. Really, this is about a stimulus package for our businesses. That's why this special session is there. And it's only a state session. So they're talking about $300 million, but there isn't any real talk of that money going to education in any significant manner. So I think they start today and get out Wednesday or Thursday. Maybe you guys have heard something different than that, but that was my update that I had today. Other than that, we have CASB this week. If you signed up for that, you sign up for a pre-session on Thursday, or the regular sessions Friday and Saturday. There is Bill De La Cruz has a session scheduled for Saturday at A and a B on equity for boards, and is going to try to run something on Zoom. I would suggest, because that was one of our goals, is to kind of go there. That may not meet all of our goals, but if you can go there, that would be great, and listen to that if something else isn't there. I think I'll listen in, and if I think it's good, I'll probably come back and try to teach you what they did, or we could have him come in later, or we could go a different route. But I just wanted to let you know that he is on the schedule for both an A and a B session to discuss exactly the issues that we talked about. So Jason did remind me that in the past he hasn't shown up, so hopefully he does this time, and I remember that now. But he has his own consulting company. He's not working for a school, so it might be easy for him to do it now. So.
And also with that, Sheldon, I think that CASB is going to record every session.
That's
So
right.
if you feel
If
like
we liked it, we could just record
valuable,
it.
yeah, we can all watch it later.
Thank you. Yes, we could do that too. Okay. Yeah, so I'll watch it for sure. And so you guys can watch something else, and then I think it's worthwhile, or hopefully you guys can watch it. And I think there's going to be some, he's breaking out in teams so you can have a discussion. So it might be a little hard to record, but we can figure it out. So
Excellent.
I think that's all I have. Unless you guys have questions, I'll let the buildings talk about all the excitement in theirs. So.
All right. Any questions or comments for Sheldon? No? All right. Moving on to 2.2, administrator reports. I'll start with our elementary school principals. Principal Bryant and Principal Miller. Welcome, guys.
Hi, everyone.
Hi. All right. So I feel like we just talked to you. But, a couple of things that I was thinking about sharing with you is, like, since we last saw you, our teams worked really hard, and we had 2 weeks of impactful in-person learning since we saw you last. And while it was a challenge, and we think you all know that we quarantined 2 kindergarten classes and a 1st grade class during that time. But it was pretty impressive how quickly our classes and our teachers transitioned to Cloud School, and their participation in that, and the cooperation we had from families during that time. So I think that while it was hard, it went really well with our team working together to successfully do that in a quick way. And then, we have, since Thanksgiving, we were meeting today, we had a staff meeting where we were looking at middle of the year expectations, and what are those, and unpacking those. And so we were, thinking about how we've been really working on these last 3 weeks. That transition between Thanksgiving and Christmas break is always a challenge instructionally. And so thinking about our primary students and engagement and in learning at home, and how do we increase that engagement for these next 3 weeks, since we've already missed out on a lot of instruction so far. So I'm excited about some of the strategies and ideas the teams are using to increase that instruction. I know Sheldon mentioned those in-person weeks, we had, absenteeism rates around 30% some days. And so today we had 30 students that were unexcused absence, which is about 7%. So we did have more kids engaged today in learning, which was exciting to see. And I'm excited to work that number down and get some more kids. We had some kids with some internet issues and things like that we are working out. And along those lines, we have Boys and Girls Club running, and I know John's going to talk a little bit more about it. We have some great people running. We have running with smaller cohorts this time. And so, we have 2 cohorts of 7 in kindergarten, a cohort of 7 in 1st and in 2nd grade. And so now we're able to bring in a couple more of these kids that are still needing internet access or a place to be. And the Y is also providing, they're providing services for about 20 students out at the Y for Cloud School. And, I just can't tell you enough how proud I am of our teachers. And I know these transitions in and out of in-person and online learning have been so hard for them. But, today I met with a couple PLCs, and just hearing the conversations, it's not about the frustrations and how woe is me. It's, okay, how are we going to do this? All right. And to be a part of a culture that's so driven by student achievement, that the teacher's saying, well, I'm going to try this and you try this, and okay, let's see how this goes. And we'll still have these days to, and it's just great to have that learning culture to really work on our student achievement in these times. So I'm pretty excited to see what happens. And as we're ending that, middle of the year, we had to push some of our assessments into January for our middle of the year, but I'm excited to see the progress our students are making.
Erin and John, I have a question. I know that the State Board of Education is hitting really hard with the READ Act. How is that affecting us? And Like,
Yeah.
can you give us an update on that?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. So you're right. They really are. And we've got a lot of things. It's part of it is a really hard work that we've got going on. And part of it, we're really fortunate to already have been aligned with a lot of the practices they're looking for. So, they're requiring now every district to be having one of the READ Act approved curriculums and intervention programs. And all of ours already are on that list and approved. And so we've already got those pieces in place. They have added a component of 45-hour training for every K-3 literacy teacher this year, and they've extended 6 months. But right now we have 2 teachers that have already completed the 45 hours and others that have made a lot of progress. So I'm excited. We're going to give them some time over the summer to comp them for some of that time, because we know it's a lot of learning and work that's going on, and using some time in PD days, things like that, to share and reflect on the learning that we're having and how it applies to what we're doing. And Tim Rishi is one of the people who's already finished, and he's shared that the things that he's learning are what we're doing in class. And so it was great to hear that. And then we're still continuing. One of the big shifts we made this year is, now that we have smaller cohorts and less reading interventionists, our teachers are owning their own students' read plans. So formerly the reading interventionists wrote the read plans and progress monitored that, and now our classroom teachers were the writers of the plans, and they're progress monitoring those students and their progress along the way. And so that's a shift we've made this year. And with that, we are having monthly learning and monthly meetings to really share out what strategies we're using and watching that progress. So I'm excited to see kind of some of those shifts with it. And there was one other component that I was going to add, but I'm sure I'll remember it after I stop talking. So does that answer your question, Laura? I think, I know, is that, our percentage of kids on read plans is higher than the state average. And so we're really working on trying to, make sure that we're identifying the right students and, making sure they're making the progress that they need, and, and accelerating their growth along the way. So.
Yeah, I know that it was a huge concern of theirs pre-COVID, and now it's a real concern of theirs, thinking that kids are really going to slip through the cracks with different kinds of learning. So yeah, I'm glad that we're on it. I'm proud of our teachers. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I'll just kind of pick up from there, talk some more about elementary stuff. But like Erin said, Cloud School obviously got started today, and we're really, this week is, today in particular, like today and tomorrow, we're looking at today and tomorrow as that time to really to focus on student engagement, because we're transitioning from in-person, then to Thanksgiving break, and now to Cloud School. And so, like Erin said, we're keeping an eye on attendance and student engagement. We're looking really closely at our remote attendance from today and tomorrow. And I spent a lot of time today on the phone with parents and kids, just trying to help them get logged on and remind them of our new schedule, because we're once again doing these transitions back and forth. So that's a big focus over the next couple of days, is helping families with that. Boys and Girls Club, like we talked a little bit about already, we have I think as of this morning 44 students enrolled that are coming to the elementary school, and then also we have 4 rooms over at the middle school that Janet has let our elementary kids use over there. And then Janet has lots of middle school kids too that are not necessarily Boys and Girls Club, which I'm sure she'll talk about. But the groups of Boys and Girls Club kids are a lot smaller this time around. Probably the biggest difference this time around is that it's not the first day of school. If you remember back to the beginning of the school year, the first day of school was remote learning Boys and Girls Club, and that was challenging for us to really kind of create a first day of school experience, especially for our little guys, in a school that wasn't really fully operating and that was online. And so now, though, our kids and our teachers have lots of experience, for better or worse, with this online thing going on, and so our kids have been able to transition back. So today, if you walked into our Boys and Girls Club rooms, kids were on it right away, and our staff. So it was really, really great to see. to see that happening. We also have a few kids in the upper grades, and I think in the lower as well, you know, that are more that are not necessarily in Boys and Girls Club, but that are in the classroom, just because it works better that way. Kind of, we have some individual students, especially in 5th grade, that we know we're going to accomplish higher levels of engagement with them. And so the teachers have invited those 1 or 2 students to actually sit out in the hallway right outside the 5th grade classrooms and do Cloud School there, as well as some in-person stuff, just because that's really, we found some kids might engage better if we do it that way rather than being with the Boys and Girls Club cohort group. So we kind of have this hybrid thing going on, which I think is going to work well over the next few weeks. And you know, and we're also just trying to also leverage some fun things with the remote learning as well. Like we're going to do the virtual holiday sing along. We kind of always did this thing where we go in the gym and do the holiday sing along, and so Jenna Williams is going to has a virtual thing that she's doing with that. So I'm glad to see that. I guess I wanted to also touch a little bit about the parent engagement piece, and we have been in the thick of parent conferences for over the last few weeks. We were right at the beginning, sort of, parent conferences, right around the evacuation time, and then, you know, we've kind of ebbed and flowed. But I'm happy to say that we have completed parent conferences with almost 100% of our parents in some capacity, virtually, of course. It's a lot later in the year than it otherwise normally would have been to have said that, but I'm glad that we've been able to pull to do that. And a big part of our parent conferences this week and talking with parents is centered around our READ plans and our ELD plans, which, as you know, that's one of our main focus areas in our school improvement, is to really focus on those English language plans and the READ plans and have that ownership at the classroom level. So a big part of the conferences have been focused on those plans for those kids that do have those plans. We continue, like Aaron said, we just talking with you guys a couple weeks ago, presenting on our UIP, and so we just continue to focus on our areas of improvement there at the elementary school, pre-K 5, that rigor, collective efficacy, curriculum and instruction, global outcomes, culturally responsive teaching, and the PLCs, progress monitoring of PLCs. So that we're trying to make a connection to all of those at all times. We have a kind of an alternating every 2 weeks primary and intermediate ELD and READ plan monitoring work session. And so this afternoon, the intermediate staff meeting was focused on working on updating our ELD and READ plans at the elementary level. And then I think primary we'll do that 2 weeks from now, and did it 2 weeks prior. So we kind of have a work session rotation going with that, which has helped us really dig into those plans. Also, I just kind of wanted to say, you know, like we've mentioned here, I couldn't be more proud of our staff and the ways in which we continue to evolve and just turn on a dime. But one of those things is you know, as awesome a job as we're doing with that, it's hard on staff. And so we're spending some time this week. We're actually going to be spending some time on Wednesday with some teachers that have stepped up to more formally create a teacher staff wellness group that can help us all really focus on how we can make sure this year is sustainable, because it's hard on all of us. I mean, all of us right here in this meeting. And so that's something that we've just in the last couple of weeks decided we need to more formally get out in front of, because people are stressed, and I think we're doing a heck of a job focusing on the learning and focusing on the things that matter, but it's a stressful time. So that's something that I'd love to keep you guys updated on as we kind of more formally address that, because that's a big thing. So and then I guess the last thing I just want to mention was around we're also looking at 3 weeks from now, we're my hope and our plan right now is we're going back to in person. So we'll see where that goes. But we're going to also spend the next 3 weeks as a staff pre-K 5 leadership team looking at our in-person experience and the in-person learning that we did provide for the couple of months that we were able to do it, and look at ways in which we might be able to tweak that and improve that for when we do return, hopefully in January. Because there's some little things within the schedule we can continue to tweak and improve to improve learning and also to just help us create a more sustainable learning environment for everyone. So that's about all I had. So yeah, questions?
I want to say thank you for sharing about the staff wellness focus. I know it's really easy to get wrapped up in the kids and how they're doing, but we need to make sure we're taking care of our staff too. And this has just been one thing after another on them. And I'm really glad to hear that we are going to focus on them as well and making sure that they're in a good place so that they can help the kids be in a good place.
Yeah, it's been hard, and I think I'm excited to really more formally start that work. And we've kind of been doing it, of course we've been paying attention to it, but it's been more informal because we're just kind of, but I feel like we have some teachers that have stepped up and said, hey, we want to really tackle this in a formal way. So I'm excited for that as well.
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, John, I wanted to mention also, we had our teacher parent conference for Victoria in 4th grade, and fantastic. Really, it went really well. Very surprised how much she's learning. She's growing academically, I think, as well as she would be in person or with the in-person and cloud. So I was very impressed by that. And also, Danielle mentioned at last meeting about pickup. As a parent and also hearing from my people in town, my parents in town, well-oiled machine. You guys pickup is amazing. It's safe, it's smooth. I love it. So, and I see everyone out there working hard. I'm just so proud of you guys. So
that's probably the first time anyone has ever said those words, other than Danielle mentioning it last meeting. So thank you.
Well, maybe you're
But
just
I'm also laughing because we spent a long time on all of these procedures, and so I'm just, whew. Thank you.
From my perspective and the parents in town that I know, the conferences went great and pickup is awesome. So I don't know what else you're hearing, but that's from.
We'll take it. Thanks.
All right. Any other questions or comments for Aaron or John while they're here? No? All right. Thank you guys for joining us and giving us such a great update. All right. Moving on to middle school, Principal Fanny.
All right. Hello, everybody. I wanted to start by just talking about student-led conferences that we did at the middle school, and they were Wednesday, November 18th. They were supposed to be in October when we all got evacuated. So they're pretty late for us to be having them, but we held them that Wednesday, then before Thanksgiving. Up until this time, we've always done arena style in the gym. Most all of you have been there and stood in line waiting to talk to a teacher. So teachers set up throughout the whole gym, and you wait in a line, and then you get 5 minutes with that teacher, and the teacher doing a lot of talking about what your child has been doing. So we've talked about it for a while, and we decided everything else this year is kind of discombobulated. So we thought, why not just do it now? Miss Greenway was super helpful. She actually created a format for kids to use to prepare for a student-led conference. It really aligns with all of our efforts in really getting students to own their learning. It's one of our big pushes at the middle school, and it fit right with that one. So students had time to prepare an advisory teachers helped them prep. Everything was held over Zoom. A number of you here had one of those conferences. At our old conferences over the years, our attendance averaged between 40 and 50%, and 50 was on a really good night, of parents attending, like of representing how many students. 40 to 50% of students had somebody there for a conference. At the student-led ones then, for 6th and 7th grade, we were just over 75% attendance. And actually today, a couple teachers were like, but I'm still waiting on it's easier to make them up. Like the arena style, we didn't do makeups. A parent would have to call 4 different teachers. And now that the advisory teacher was in charge of that, they're actually trying to get to 100%. So 6th and 7th had really good turnout. Some of the teachers are obviously still doing makeups. 8th grade was below 60%, but still better than our average. But not as high as 6th and 7th. The other thing that was really exciting, we had a really good turnout of our ELD families, and we were working on those numbers this afternoon. I don't have a final one, but all the teachers said they had a good turnout there. We actually ended up using both Jose and Adriana to translate, which was interesting. It was the teacher that needed the translation because the student was talking in Spanish to their parent. So it was kind of a flip of the table there, which it worked out really well. I actually have feedback from 2 parents. The only feedback I've ever gotten in my time at middle school about how long the lines were and how they were there for 2 hours and talked to 2 parents. So this was super exciting for me to get. 2 people, just short emails. The first one said, I was so impressed with Gabby's presentation. I think it's a great learning exercise in preparing and presenting. Again, fits with our global outcomes. I love the way Shauna, Ms. Caracello, interacted with her. They came up with a plan for working together to help Gabby organize her assignments. We are so happy. I will say again, I love that she put a presentation together like that. She seemed to have done more self-reflecting than she has ever done before. I'm sure having to make a presentation contributed to that. And I will say again that I loved how Ms. Caracello interacted with Grace. She's a great teacher. And then this one, a different grade level, said, we just came from Sam's conference. It was awesome. Sam was totally prepared, and Mr. Johnson let him do almost all of the talking. And we really feel like we learned a lot about what Sam is doing at school. We've been super impressed with Middle School Cloud School. So some of the things that jump out at me there, we learned about what Sam is doing at school. That should be what a conference is, not here's the 10 assignments your kid is missing. And like, this is the switch in the culture that we're really trying to make it at middle school. So excited about that. I think it's a really positive change in a format that we'll be sticking with. So we might tweak the tool that the kids used. I think that may have helped some of the 8th graders, is maybe they had some different prompts than the 6th and 7th. So we'll tweak it a little bit, but we will be sticking with student-led conferences. So excited about that. And then just Cloud School, a couple things. We did have to quarantine, which is interesting. When we found out we had to quarantine, we had gone back to Cloud School because it was the week of the 16th. However, I did have like 4 of my kids coming into the Commons were kids that had to quarantine. So it was certainly better than us being in school to have found that out, but we still had to make contact with staff. We had 14 students and 7 staff members actually on that one. So attendance has been just improving every day in Cloud School. Electives in the afternoon, I think a lot of kids, once they get that break in the afternoon, they maybe forget to come back and go to choir or go to Spanish. Some kids sleep through their cores and they only go to the elective. So we're seeing it kind of on both ends. But I had an elective teacher today emailed me, and at his 12:30 class, he had 100% attendance. And that is the first time that's happened. So super excited about that. And just like John and Aaron, we just start calling. Like once the students miss their second core in the morning, we've got an app that we can text parents. We're either texting or calling, or teachers are emailing students. So we're giving it our best effort. Boys and Girls Club did start in the middle school today. As John said, they're using 4 of our classrooms. There's actually 26 kids that will be attending Boys and Girls Club at our school, and they're using 2 of our paras. We did a little bit of juggling to cover some other things so that those paras could help with Boys and Girls Club. Today went really well. Like, the cohorts now are so small. When they were there this fall, I think we were at, John, like 10 to 12 in a group for Boys and Girls Club. And today they were at like, I think the biggest one was maybe 7. And we had one group that had 5 in a classroom. So I don't know, it just felt very calm today with Boys and Girls Club. And again, they've been through it. So it was, kind of, okay, we know what we're doing in terms of getting checked in at the door and getting kids into their rooms. We do still have our kids in the Commons. We call them the Commons cohort. So we just had to be careful today that we're not crossing cohorts with Boys and Girls Club getting in line to get lunch at the same time as my kids were. The Boys and Girls Club went up to elementary for their recess, so they wouldn't be out in the same recess area that our middle school kids were. So, and we are still offering the commons to any middle school student that needs to come in, either for Wi-Fi or home just doesn't seem to be a good place for them to learn. We've got quite a few kids that just fit in that category. Before Thanksgiving that week, we were seeing 20 to 25 kids every day. Logistically, was getting a little bit tricky to stay COVID safe and have 25 kids in the commons. So each day we, kind of changed it a little bit, but we had them by grade level and spread out throughout the whole commons. I'd say stop by and see it, but I'm really not supposed to let you in the building. So I'll take a picture of it and send it to you, but we are getting it figured out. They also get some support. My special ed teacher is in the building every day and actually has set himself up out in the commons and is supporting kids in that way. So that's just going really well. They get breakfast and lunch. Also wanted to thank Dave Colson. We are providing transportation. So the buses ran pretty empty today because the Boys and Girls Club kids have to get dropped off because of their rules about a parent checking them in. So really the buses are running for just my middle school cohort kids and possibly a couple high school kids. So we're going to see how the week goes with transportation. We may not run all the routes, but for today we did and tomorrow. So that just feels like the right thing to be doing for our kids that need extra support. In terms of teachers, I'm in the middle of formal observations, and I've been really impressed, not just with our teachers, but also with our students and their level of engagement in Cloud School. We're obviously have had quite a bit of time in it, and we're getting things figured out about leaving your cameras on and when to unmute and how to use breakout rooms, and all of those things are just really improving our engagement. I'm also hearing teachers really eager for feedback. I had a teacher today ask the kids, and he said, pacing is really hard for me remotely. Like in the classroom, he's on it, but he said to the kids, man, tell me how this pace feels today. And I was really impressed with that he was open enough to say to the kids, I'm still new to this. Let me know if we're going too fast or too slow. So just really good things happening in Cloud School. And I really felt like, we're in a different spot from elementary because we got a week of remote and then Thanksgiving break. And my sense with our staff today was everybody seemed refreshed. I think that break came at the right time. I think getting 1 week of that remote in and then having the week, but lots of us talking today about finishing second quarter strong and what can we get done in the next 3 weeks. So it was a good day at the middle school today.
Janet, I have a question. The teacher you were talking about that had 100% attendance, did that happen to be Dr. Denny?
No, it was not.
Oh, because he sent out an email to all the parents saying when, and of course I was at work and sent my kid a text like, you better be in choir today. So I was wondering if the parent
really
pressure.
Big ones. He's got one choir that's got like 44 kids. I don't even know how he takes attendance, like in the grid. So no, unfortunately it was not choir. It happened to be Spanish today, Laura.
Yeah. I should have known that.
Yeah.
All right. Another thing I wanted to say, Janet, when we had in person, when I had to pick up the girls at the elementary school, I'm so incredibly impressed. So many middle schoolers outside, all wearing masks. That's hard for that age. And I was very impressed. I don't think I saw one kid without a mask outside. So very impressed by that.
The things we worried about maybe aren't the things we should have been worried about, because that was with middle schoolers. I'm like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do about masks? They're leaving them on and they're wearing them at recess. They absolutely are. So that's gone really well.
Well, and I think it's almost a fashion thing right now. They like to wear their masks, and also they so badly want to be around each other. They'll do anything to be around each other. So
yeah. But
I just wanted to say thank you for that. Yep. All right. Any other questions or comments for Janet?
Just a comment real quick, Janet. As I keep track of what's going on around town, and I'm starting to see from businesses, from what's going on with the town, to now hear John and Aaron talking about how teachers are, rather than, what in the world are we going to do? They're figuring out innovative ways to deal with things. And then I hear the student-led conferences and your success there, having a huge success in attendance with them. It's really good, and I think it can be even important to see that we got to remember that there's good things coming out of all this as well.
Absolutely.
And it's really important, I think, to keep bringing those up. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Well, that's interesting, Eric. I'm making a list of things that we should still do next year.
Good.
Middle school wise, the in-person and the COVID rules there's lots and lots of learning happening, and there's very little discipline. I'll just leave that right here because I've jinxed a number of things in the last few weeks. So thank you, Sheldon. I'm just going to not say another word. So yeah. Thanks, Eric.
You bet.
All right. Any other questions or comments for Principal Fanning? No? All right. Thank you, Janet. Moving on to high school, Principal Bodie and Principal Scott.
Hi, everybody. I'll talk about instruction and then talk about CT and athletics and activities at the high school. And so since we met last, which actually wasn't that long ago, it seems like, we've had 2 staff meetings since then, and we're really dedicating our staff meeting to focusing on improving the quality of our instruction at the high school and equity and excellence for every student. On November 2nd, we had a staff meeting, and we really focused on our wider community goal at that one. John Anderson built this really neat choice board, and he modeled blended learning instruction and student choice for our staff. And staff, they read about, they learned about, they shared ideas for performance tasks, performance-based assessments, and integrating global outcomes into their performance-based assessments. And they reflected on that and how it impacts their teaching, and continued their preparation for performance-based assessments, which is a goal for all of us at the high school. In May, all of the staff is going to be sharing the risks they've been taking and the performance task and performance-based assessments and global outcome integration they have done, and share that with each other. So we're preparing for that. On November 16th, we had another staff meeting, but this one we focused on our goal of grading for equity. We used a Save the Last Word protocol, and staff discussed quotes they prepared from the book and brought to the meeting with their colleagues, and they reflected on the implications of that discussion in their own grading practices and what their next steps will be for implementing grading for equity practices. We focused on just chapters 9 and 10 for that meeting. Chapters 9 and 10 are all about practices that value knowledge, not the environment or behavior of the student. And at the next staff meeting we'll continue that work. We'll be doing the same protocol with chapters 7 and 8, and those are focused on practices that are mathematically accurate. But these are really intentional discussions that the staff is engaging in. They're meant to promote inquiry and build on each other's thinking, and then implement some of those practices and come back and discuss. In order to change our grading practices that have been ingrained for so many years, we have to change mindsets first. And so we need to spend that time discussing and talking about grading practices, why they are equitable, why they are not equitable, and what are some grading practices we can try and use that promote equity for every student. And eventually, our goal in the end is to come to some common and collective beliefs and commitments around grading school-wide. In November, we held our second round of parent conferences. We had parent conferences at the end of September for the first 4 classes, and we held parent conferences through Zoom for this second set of 4 classes. And we had, on average, teachers saw about 6 to 7 parents, similar to the first round of conferences. Eventually, I'd love to see the high school implement what the middle school is starting and have those students really used to student-led conferences and integrate that into the high school. That would be a dream. So, but we had okay turnout. Typically at the high school, parents are less and less engaged because they're handing those reins over to students. And also, a lot of communication has been through email in this virtual environment. So teachers are kind of in constant communication through email with parents, just checking in. Our counselors are finishing up the master schedule for second semester right now. If you didn't see it in the newsletter, we are going to be resuming the same schedule for second semester as well, just holding 4 classes at a time for each quarter. And and so that is something that the counselors are working on. We're really close to having that finished, and students should be getting their schedules soon for second semester, and teachers knowing what their classes will be and how many students will be in each class. We've also begun the formal observation. So Chuck and I have been in classrooms a lot. We've been observing the Zoom instruction, the online virtual environment, and we're so very, very impressed with our teachers and students. I know Janet mentioned it, and I'll just reiterate it here. Students and teachers are really engaged in that Zoom time. Teachers are doing an excellent job of planning really engaging blended learning instruction. What we're really struggling with at the high school is the asynchronous learning that students are doing at home. With our Cloud School schedule, our classes are only an hour long for the synchronous time with teachers. So there is an expectation that students are spending time at home doing the project assigned or the activity assigned by the teacher on their own in the home environment. It's homework, but there's more asynchronous time in our new Cloud School schedule. Classes in person are 90 minutes long, but in Cloud School, we have 60 minutes of Zoom time with your classmates, and then a half hour of asynchronous time. And so we're really going to be calling in our next set of communication with our parents and students, calling on our parents and students to help with that asynchronous work time. The school day does not end at 2, and we really want to stress that with our parents and teachers. The school day at the high school still ends at 3:15, and we really want you to engage in learning for that entire time. The student council students, I met with the student council and got some ideas from the students on how we can communicate with our student body, tips and ideas for maintaining a good mental health and social emotional learning at home for students. And so the student council is collecting advice and feedback from their peers, and they're sending it to me, and we're going to be creating and publishing some tips for our students created by students from the student council. So you'll be seeing that communication come out from the high school. And then the last thing I guess I'll share from instruction is today we had a leadership team meeting with all of our PLC leaders, and we did a mid-year reflection on our Estes Park High School Unified Improvement Plan. I've shared that with you before. There's 5 destinations in our Road to Success, which is our improvement plan: teaching, learning, leadership, professional learning, and wider community. And what they did is they did a brainstorm in a Jamboard through our Zoom meeting together, and they threw up so many different cool ideas for how we have met each of our elements in our Unified Improvement Plan. And overall, they then got into discussion, and they decided on only 1 or 2 that they think are having the most impact of what we're doing this year toward meeting that goal. So for our teaching goal, which is our blended learning and personalized learning for students, the 2 that they picked were that we're meeting constantly to learn how to improve student engagement during remote learning, and that PLCs are constantly sharing with each other the blended learning tools they're using in their Zoom meetings through their PLC team time and in our staff meeting time. So they think that's having a big impact. Under learning, which is our grading for equity goal, what they picked from that one is that teachers are taking risks with different grading practices, such as replacing scores once students had demonstrated the learning in other ways, and they're embracing multiple aspects of the grading for equity, such as flexible dates, only grading summative assessments, allowing redos, and they're sharing those successes with each other through staff meetings and PLCs. Under our leadership end, which is our effective and efficient communication, they picked that out of all these ideas, and there was like 15 on each board, that the new Student Success Friday meetings and grade levels are targeting students that need intervention, and that they feel that is having success and it's improving communication with students and parents. And then that the high school office staff is focusing on more effective and efficient communication with parents and students and meeting weekly. Under the professional learning goal, staff members all made a professional goal that aligns with one of our destinations in our school improvement plan, and that's having a big impact. That PLCs are sharing best practices with each other during their team meeting time. And then for our wider community goal, which is our global outcome goal and performance-based assessment goal, the 2 that they picked for that one is that we're working on community-wide resource teams for our CTE programs, and that The CTE Community Resource Group is focused on building student-employer relationships and training and mentorship. So those were the ones that they picked for our mid-year reflection on how we're meeting our school improvement goal at the high school. Chuck, can you think of anything else I missed as far as instruction in the building?
Nope, I think you got it covered good. Thank you.
All right, I'll pass it on to you then for activities and CTE and athletics.
Okay,
I've
so
got real fast, Ruby, I've got a question for you.
Mhm.
Thank you. That was an amazing update about the academics. I am curious about the mental emotional health of our students right now. What kind of feedback are you getting from parents and students that they are missing out on homecoming, they're missing out on dances, they're missing out on, you know, going to school sports? Are kids reaching out?
They are.
I know that they're frustrated, but how is that from your perspective? And are they able to get the mental emotional help that they need? Because I read article after article about how hard teenagers are being hit by all of the quarantining, and I would just like to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah, and Chuck, jump in too. We surveyed students. So Micah McCreary is our he's an employee with us. He's one of our 3 interns that works with us, and he's on our communication team. And he gave out a student survey and collected data to find out how students are doing in Cloud School and what they're struggling with. And yes, students are struggling. They're really struggling with not seeing each other and that social connection and missing out on the high school experience, the social experience of high school. We have 2 really amazing counselors this year that have planned tons of different meeting times with groups and office hours. And a lot of what has ended up happening is that students aren't participating, and they'll do like a group time focused on a specific subject, like maybe getting enough sleep or organizing your schedule or depression or things like that during that 2 to 3 flex time, which we purposely built into our schedule for that reason. The attendance at those hasn't been super high, but what is high is one-on-one meetings with our counselors. Our counselors spend their day in Zoom one-on-ones with kids and in-person one-on-ones with kids, one-on-one in-persons with kids, when the students really feel like they just need the one-on-one in person. And so students are really getting that support from our counselors one-on-one. The group meetings on Zoom doesn't replace being in person with your peers. And so I think that's really what our students are missing. I think my perspective, Laura, is that our high school students are struggling with depression right now. It's very real. It's our reality, with feeling disconnected socially from each other, from missing out on athletics, from missing out on all of the activities, events, fundraising, band, choir, field trips, just all of the homecoming, prom, all of those things that come with being a high school student. And so our counselors are responding daily to those needs for our students. And I'd say that's probably everywhere in all of the buildings. And our teachers often go talk with our counselors as well. Our counselors are doing a lot of counseling for our teachers too, our staff. So it's very real. I think it's that collective, it's collective mourning right now, I think, from this pandemic and the wildfires. We're all suffering. The only good thing is that we're finding comfort in that we're suffering together. Chuck, what would you say from your perspective?
I would just ditto most of what you said. And one thing that's on the agenda tonight is the approval of early graduation. And we have never had this many seniors graduate, want to finish early. But the fact is that what Ruby just said, that the activities are not there, the prom, the homecoming, all of that stuff isn't there. And so the kids are saying, well, I might as well just get on with it and be done with high school now. And so there's no doubt it's a huge struggle. And I just hope in January that we begin to see the light at the end of the tunnel and get some normalcy back into the school day and get kids back in the building consistent and building those relationships and and getting involved in the activities. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Mhm. And a lot of the work that we're doing now is preparing for how we're going to respond when the light at the end of the tunnel does come, because there will be some response. We have students that are making money working and they're disengaging from school, so they're not on track to graduate on time now, or the Zoom classes are not working and their attendance is low. And so we're going to have some things to respond to, and mental health is definitely one of those things we're going to be formulating a plan to respond to.
Yeah, and I know that it was a huge issue pre-COVID about depression and worrying about suicide rates and worrying about their mental health. And now during this COVID, they have a lot of the same stresses as their parents do and as adults do. And a lot of parents are struggling through this too. But thank you for that update.
Mm-hmm. The other addition has been Courtney Carroll, and that's been a great addition because when it reaches out of our counselor's realm and capacity, Courtney will get on, find another community resources for that student. So our counselors will contact her and she'll start looking up what outside resources that family and student can access. So that's been great. That came at a time when it was very needed.
So I'll jump into a little bit with some of my end of the stuff. We did restart athletics today with some practices. We are going by the Lamar County health guidelines where there's no more than 10 in the gym or the swimming area or the wrestling room at a time. We are not having contact, so wrestling, they are not contact, but they have not started yet, but they're going to work on conditioning. They are masked at all time. We do our best to social distance. They're not scrimmaging in basketball, those types of things. So that was probably over break. I had quite a few in-person conversations, emails, texts from parents, athletes, kids, coaches wanting to know when we're going to get athletics going. And so we decided to go today, but we are going to stay within the Lamar County Health guidelines. I've already got emails and Facebooks that, why are we doing athletics now? So those might be coming your way. But we're going to try and stay within the guidelines that Lamar provides and provide our kids a safe place and environment to participate. As of today, CHASA is still scheduled on January 4th to begin our basketball season, our wrestling season, and our girls swimming season. They are working with the state, the governor's office on the variances that will happen, and we should hear an update on those this week or early next week, and then we'll move forward from there. But that's kind of where the athletics and activities, Dr. Denny has been in conversation with the people in New York on the choir trip, and it looks like that is going to be postponed again to the next year. And those are other things that the kids are missing. We are tentatively have our musical that usually happens in the fall set for when we come back, and we'll visit that when we get back in and see if we can do that in a safe way. But all those things, we make one plan and then things change and we make another plan, and we'll just continue to do that until hopefully we can get something to occur. So that's kind of where we're at with athletics and activities right now. The CT building, we are waiting on the delivery of the welding shells, and they've been held up because of COVID, but they should be here early next week. And then the last thing we have to do is just bring the electricians back in, and they will wire those welders in place in each of their booths, and then we'll pretty much be done with the CT building. There are lots of vegetables growing out there now, and and things. And so we have had some of our construction geometry kids in there doing projects. Sarah Schmidt, our teacher, she's done a great job with those kids, and they love it out there. And so it's fun to watch them work out there and get going. So that's all going well. So questions?
Oh, Chuck, I wanted to say that when we had in person, I pick up my kids and I drive by the CTE building. Every single time there was like a handful of kids coming out of there talking with their masks on. I'm so proud of them. And just like connecting and, you know, just seeing that excitement of the kids leaving that building, that means that they did something that, you know, fired them up in there. And just, I think there was, I don't know, maybe like 10 times that I drove by, and every time I drive by, there's happy kids coming out of that building.
Yeah, it's a happy place.
Yeah, and I look forward to maybe after break, yeah, if we can go in there and see what's going on.
Yeah, we'd be glad to host any of you if you want to walk through it anytime. I'm here every day and can walk you through it because it's a neat facility.
Yeah, well, and also this is after school. The kids want to hang out there after school, and
Yeah,
that says something. If kids want to be at school after when they don't have to be there.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. Any other questions or comments for Chuck or Ruby? No. Just real fast. Are there any discussions about graduation yet, or are we just waiting on that?
No, we do. The seniors have Jostens. That's who we do our graduation gowns and caps and their all of their material for graduation through. We have that out to the seniors, and they get it back to us here in the next couple weeks and order those. And then we don't really start on, other than reserving the buildings, which we already have the YMCA reserved for that Thursday before graduation for baccalaureate. And that's more of a kid and parent deal, but one of our parents has already taken care of that. And then we have the event center reserved for that Friday. But we are more of our, of that preparation takes care of afterwards. So yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you guys for such great updates. All right, moving on to Director of Special Education, Mr. Laszlo Hunt. Hi, Laz.
Good evening. One of these days we'll have to change the order. Yeah, I'll kind of keep it brief so everyone can get back to their evenings. But on the special ed front, I was able to be part of a forum the week before Thanksgiving, and it was quite interesting. It was the directors from it was hosted by ARC of Larimer County, so the ARC of Larimer County put it together, and the directors from Poudre School District and Thompson and myself were all part of this, as well as there were some attorneys from the Office of Civil Rights and an attorney from the Disability Law Access Center in Denver. And then we had some parents and some staff, and then we had panelists or folks that called in or presented questions. It was an evening, I think it was just before Thanksgiving. And one of the takeaways that I had from that was our staff is doing an amazing job for such a small district and such limited resources to a certain extent when you compare us to the Poudre School District and the Thompson School District with the number of programs they have. Our staff's doing a great job at doing exactly what came out of that forum, which was, and the whole focus of it was special education in the age of COVID. And so one of the things that came from that is really going back to building individualized plans for students and knowing that one thing might work for one student, may not work for another. We have students that are flourishing in the online and cloud school environments. We have students that are struggling. And so going back to the idea of IDEA and looking at each student individually and making their plan when we're in school, and then of course when we're out of school right now, that came through in so many different themes that evening. So I went back feeling really good about what our staff are doing. We have a range of things going on in each building. Our general ed and our special ed staff are all working together to support the needs of students with disabilities. We have students that are just creative things that are happening with, I wrote some questions or some examples here. Our OT has created an entire YouTube channel with the alphabet yoga and all these things that kids can do at home to kind of keep working on their skills. We have our teacher who works with a student with vision impairments has done videos and things that can be done at home with the parents. And so we're shifting our focus, which is really fascinating to me, to not just supporting students, but supporting parents. And that's been a big part of what we've been doing over the last few weeks, preparing for this second. That was a learning for us during the first period of time we were closed. It's not enough just to come up with a plan for the student, but we need to also come up with a plan for how we can engage our parents and help them support students with disabilities at home, because that's a challenging thing to do. And they're not maybe equipped to do that, or it's a hard thing for them to do because they're the parent. So we're helping them with sorting that out. One of the things I think somebody mentioned earlier about takeaways and things we're writing down that we want to continue after the COVID-19 has moved beyond us is we've been doing all of our IEPs via Zoom or Google for purposes of not having people together for meetings and those kind of things. But what I can say is we've had incredible parent participation in those meetings. And I think part of it is they don't have to leave work. They can have support systems in place. So we've been getting better at it. They're not all great, but I've seen some real powerful meetings and conversations happening, IEP meetings where our families are really involved, even though we have the fact that they might be calling in or Zooming in. So that's something I'd like to keep going with, because I think it helps for a family not to have, some people like coming in and doing the meetings, but we have multiple parents that come, they just, on their lunch break, they're at work, but they're participating in their students' IEP. So that's been really a good takeaway and a learning for us. The one group I really want to just give a shout out to here is our paraprofessionals across the district. They are doing a lot of in-person support. They're dealing with the fact that I'm making them wear PPE to stay safe, and they're working through that and putting up with that, but also just they're just doing great work with our students. They've been so flexible. We have several of them moved over to Boys and Girls Club, went back to being a paraprofessional. Now they're back in Boys and Girls Club, and they've been great and gracious about making all these changes and supporting wherever we need them to support the learning for all of our students. And so I want to give them a shout out in addition to all of our staff who have been working so hard. The last piece I want to kind of just a real quick update on our Remote Learning Academy. I had a conversation with Mary Barron, who is doing a lot of that work with our teachers and our students there today. And just last time we met, I wanted to give you guys numbers and I didn't have them. So I just want to give you numbers real quick. We've had some movement and we anticipate a little bit more at the semester, but most of the families that are in RLA right now are settled into it. We have 99 families that have settled in pretty much for the year. Out of that, there's about 128 students, 51 at high school, 34 at middle school, and 43 at elementary. So we kind of stayed about the same proportion, but lost some students at each level. We did have 21 students since the beginning of the year go back to in-person or cloud school, which was something we figured would happen. We had 12 students move to homeschool that were initially starting with our remote learning. We had 7 students that moved to other learning platforms, whether it be Colorado Connections or some of the other ones that are out there. And then we had 4 students that moved. So basically our numbers have kind of drifted a little bit smaller, but I think we're in a spot. We know at the semester we have some students that are looking at going back at the transition, but for the most part, I feel like we'll probably settle into this number for the remainder of the year. And the families that are in the remote learning we're working really hard to support the learning needs of all those students. And some are flourishing and doing great, and some we're having to do a lot more support for. And we've learned a lot, that staff and Mary and I, about what is needed for, again, going back to sort of what I was saying about the IEP students, individualized plans for those. So some need a lot more structure and support to be successful in that. And the teachers there are doing a great job of getting that support out to the families and the students. So any questions? I didn't want to go too long there.
Not really a question, Laszlo, but report on Benjamin, who's in Florida Virtual and doing well with it. Sure, he struggles sometimes, but email and communication going back and forth seems to work well for him. It's again one of those things that I was talking about earlier. You touched on where, hey, there's some good things that have come out of this that we may want to keep. A good thing for Benjamin has been that he's become a little bit more independent and had needing to learn into, I've got to go in there and research some, and he's starting to learn what that might mean and what that is involved. And I think it's working really well for him. So thank you guys. On my end, for my son, seems to be doing very well.
Great, thank you. And you just reminded me that will be a conversation we start to have here as post-COVID. What do we want our online offerings to look like? Because I think we realize there are some students that really flourished in that environment. And so we want to have a conversation about down the road here, not now, but down the road when we have more stability in our system about what we want that to look like.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Laz, and actually all of our administrators, I've been thinking a lot about higher ed in college, and post-COVID, there's going to be a lot of virtual learning that goes on for higher education. And I think this is a great way to prepare students, whether they go that route or not, but it gives them more options. And they'll be good at it by the time they're 18. All right, thank you, Laz. Well, any other board member have any questions or comments for Laz? No? All right. Thank you, Laz.
And Laura, I just wanted to mention the amazing job these guys are doing and their staff. I mean, whatever thing it comes on, I mean, they handle it and move forward. And actually, I sent out right before Thanksgiving people to write down all the things that you have done, not worry about the things that you need to do or don't know what's happening next week. And, if you ask any of us to come up with a new cloud school in 2 days and come up with a whole new online learning program and get a new curriculum for ROA and all those things, we always said it's impossible, you can't do it, but yet they all been possible. And one of the struggles I think that we have a little bit here at Estes, and I was in a rural roundtable, I was invited to a rural roundtable meeting where we were sharing our experiences and stuff. And one thing that seems to be different here is our quality of cloud school. Most people are really struggling with cloud school, and so they're willing to stay in person no matter what, even with 50% of their kids gone, because their cloud school isn't very successful. Where ours, we have high participation and some real quality stuff going on. I'm not saying it's the same as in person, but it's a question, what kind of in-person are you having too when 30% of your kids are gone and gone every other day and all that kind of stuff. So one thing is that came across very clear, and even after I presented and with ROA and stuff, people have completely bombed with ROA. They don't use the same one we do, but they have zero participation. And so I actually had 3 people contact me today and say, what are you doing? Some of it is we gave a lot more support than they are, but I think that we got to recognize the amazing things that we are doing, and I think that's why it's a little harder for us. I mean, we almost felt like the learning is somewhat lost if we can't have all our kids here in person versus cloud school. There's a balance there, and most people there isn't a balance there. There is like, well, if they're not here, they're not learning anything. And our kids definitely learn in cloud school, not like normal in person, but they do learn in cloud school, and they also learn it in person. But we are a lot closer no matter which framework we are than it sounds like most schools are. And I just got to give that credit to the principals and the teachers for just taking that on.
All right. Thank you, Sheldon.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Moving on to agenda item 2.3, our board reports. I guess I'll start with just piggybacking on exactly what Sheldon was talking about. I did my CBOCES meeting where I get to connect with other rural districts, and that's exactly kind of what I saw was a lot of schools are clutching on to that one in-person paradigm of learning, and they're struggling, and they're terrified of anything online or cloud school. and they're having problems with staff and losing staff or staff getting sick. And so proud of our district and our administrators and our leadership for really connecting with our staff and supporting them in learning how to teach in a completely different way. And yeah, we're definitely struggling, but not in the way that other school districts our size are struggling right now. So thank you for bringing that up, Sheldon. I absolutely agree. I'm incredibly impressed by our administration and the support for our teachers. And that's about all I can update them on CBOCs. Any other board reports? No. All right, moving on to student board representative. Mina is not with us this time, so we'll get her next time. And moving on to agenda item 3, the consent agenda. Would a board member like to make a motion to approve the items listed in the consent agenda?
So moved.
I second.
All right, I'll take any questions or comments on the consent agenda item from the board now. No, we'll take a vote. Heather, roll call, please.
Mr. Adams?
Aye.
Mrs. Capo?
Aye.
Mrs. Case?
Aye.
Mr. Kushner?
Aye.
Mrs. Wolf?
Aye.
The ayes have the vote. The motion is passed. Moving on to agenda item 4, action items. We do not have any action items this time. So moving on to agenda item 5, upcoming meetings and designations. Our next meeting will be Tuesday, December 8th, 2020, work session Zoom at 8:30. I wanted to ask if we wanted to change that time to the afternoon like we've done with other work sessions since we're doing it Zoom. Would you guys like to move that to 2 o'clock, or do you want to stick with the 8:30 in the morning?
Doesn't matter to me.
The afternoon would work better for me on that day.
The
Afternoons work for me too.
Okay, Jason?
I can do either one.
Okay, so let's move that one to 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Okay.
Thank you, Heather. Does that work for you, Sheldon? All right.
Yes. Thanks, you.
All right. And our next meeting, Monday, December 14th, 2020, regular meeting, Zoom at 6:15. Does that work for everybody? All right. Moving on to agenda item 6, other. Anybody have any others? Anything they want to bring up?
I might mention why that December meeting so early. It's December 14th because we have to certify our mill levies by the 15th, and we don't get the information until the 10th. So we have a very small timeline there, and so that's why we always schedule that one on the 12th or 13th or 14th, something like that, before the 15th. Otherwise, we have to have a special meeting. So that's why that's so early, and we have 3 in a row. So.
Thanks for that clarifier.
Yeah, I do have another for the CASB convention that we have later this week. CASB sent out a thing for us to update our profiles. I would say that's an important thing to do. You just kind of update your profile. You put a picture on there, your contact information. I recommend that because I've made some amazing contacts through CASB at these conventions throughout the years. I've created some really amazing friendships, and it's great too, like when you have breakout rooms, when you connect with people and they're like, hey, we really like what Estes Park is doing. They know exactly how to connect with you. They have your cell phone number, they have your email, whatever. It's just a great way to connect with people. And I don't know what it's going to look like. I know they've been working really, really, really hard on this convention, but it looks like it's going to be pretty good information, and I'm pretty excited about it. But yeah, if you get a chance, update your profile just so people can find you and connect with you. And that's my advice. Any questions about the CASB convention while we're here? No? All right, moving on to agenda item 7, adjournment. Would a board member like to make a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved.
All right, meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.